Thank you for viewing this American Sewing Guild educational series on how to create a pinked and stitched seam finish. The pinked and stitched seam finish is a pink seam finish with the addition of a row of stitching to help secure any raveling that may occur beyond the pinked edge. This type of seam finish is good for firm, crisp, tightly woven, light to heavyweight fabrics. This type of seam finish would not be good for sheer fabrics or very loosely woven fabrics, as the pinking shears usually do not work well with these types of fabrics. To begin, create a plain seam. Meld the seam and press open the seam allowance. Place the blade of the pinking shear along the cut edge of the seam allowance. You will only want to take off the very edge of the fabric. Work with a single seam allowance and trim the edge along the entire length. The seam allowances can also be closed together and trimmed as one. This is not always possible, so test the fabric to see if it will work. The pinked edge is now ready for the next step. Set the machine for straight stitching and a shorter stitch length. Depending on the fabric, anywhere from 1.5 to 2 millimeters usually does it. If the fabric is thicker, use a 2.5 millimeter stitch length. This step is very simply to run a row of stitching approximately 1/8 of an inch away from the pinked edge on each seam allowance. Continue along the edge. No need to backstitch at either the beginning or the end of the stitching. After the first seam allowance is stitched, repeat for the other. The additional row of stitching neatly finishes off the pinked edge and also provides an additional bit of security should the pinked edge ravel further back. The additional row of stitching will further prevent that raveling. Let's watch how to do this. The seam has been pinked. Set the machine for a straight stitch and simply stitch next to the pinked edge. Use the inside of the toe of the presser foot as a guide while stitching along that edge. Move the needle position if necessary, and do this for both seam allowances. Thank you for viewing this American Sewing Guild video. If you have any questions, email ramona@asg.org. The American Sewing Guild is a national nonprofit organization dedicated to people who believe sewing is a rewarding and creative activity. If you enjoyed this video, join ASG to view our library of in-depth educational videos on various sewing topics. They are free to our members. Members also enjoy discounts from vendors who support our organization, along with many other benefits.